Hi, this is Bill Sutton,
And Jason Sutton.
and welcome to another week of Sutton Impact Family Style. Lots to talk about today, lots to talk about. And I want to start off with our sport business moment.
Sounds good.
And I was at Pittsburgh for the opening weekend, and usually, historically, opening day always sells out, and the second day is usually the worst attended game for many teams of the year. It's not an event. It was anticlimactic and everything else. The weather's still iffy. So this year the Pirates put a big promotion on Saturday, which was a Francisco Cervelli singing bobblehead was up for grabs to the first 20,000 people. They sold 30,000 tickets. But the interesting thing to me was that people came really, really early because they wanted to get their Cervelli bobblehead doll. So the business moment is how much food and beverage they sold, because the lines were longer than any food and beverage lines that I'd usually seen. But people are getting there. Some gates opened at 5, other gates opened at 5:30. The game didn't start till 7:05. So you had plenty of time to get there and eat and do everything else early.
All for a bobblehead.
All for bobblehead. Now you might say, what is the allure of a Francisco Cervelli singing bobblehead doll? Well, they've created this spot that they do with Cervelli, and he comes out in a robe with his number on it, with a rose, and he gives love advice. And it's really popular, and it's actually really funny. But I thought I would share the bobblehead, so they use Dean Martin's song, and I'm just going to play it and let you all enjoy it.
When the moon hits your eye like a big divide, that's amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore.
And that's the walk-up song they use for Cervelli in the game. And that's why the popularity. And he's a very attractive guy, and the ladies like him, and the guys think he's pretty cool. So it's a very, very effective promotion. And I've already called the Pirates because I want to see what the F&B numbers were for Saturday night, because they had to be off the charts.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a good time.
And the other thing I saw that obviously I've made it clear that I'm a pretty big video game fan.
Mm-hmm.
And the Pirate Super Mario run that they do on their outfield board was very cool.
Very cool.
I'm not sure, are they the first team that's done that?
It's the first time I've seen it, so I haven't seen it until this year. It's an amazing scoreboard, too, because it looks like an old-school scoreboard. Okay, it's got, like, the green wall and all the scores on it. And all of a sudden it flips and goes to the video board. And then they created this Super Mario Brothers kind of a thing where you've got to jump up and down.
And hit the blocks.
And hit the blocks and make it happen and grab it. So you're actually interacting, and it's fun because it's one of those things that everybody in the stadium can see it. And it's new, and it's fun, and it's different. And it goes over really, really well.
Right.
One last thing, Jason. They introduced a new pierogi. So we now have 6 pierogies in the pierogi race. And the latest one is the new pizza-flavored pierogies by Mrs. T's Pierogi. And it's a pizza patty is now in the pierogi race.
Well, that is fantastic.
And the last thing I'll say is it was 38 degrees for opening day, 58 degrees for the second game, and 76 degrees for the third game. So a little bit of global disruption weather, if you will.
And like you said, the second day was in the 50s, and that was the bobblehead day.
Yep.
And
people were there unbelievably early lining up to get the bobblehead.
And they weren't even upset.
Yeah. I'll post a picture of the bobblehead on Twitter and on my Facebook page so people can look at it.
It's a very cool looking bobblehead.
Yeah.
A smaller head bobblehead than most bobbleheads. But
very much so, yeah.
He's like almost a proportionate bobblehead.
But a singing bobblehead.
But a singing bobblehead nonetheless.
All right, I guess we should talk about the Masters.
I suppose. Francisco Garcia. Freddie Garcia. No.
Sergio
Garcia. Why am I'm stuck?
So what a story. And the Sunday round started with 4 really named players: Ricky Fowler, Jordan Spieth, Sergio Garcia, Justin Rose. I mean, it was exciting from the get-go. And I'll tell you what I saw they haven't seen in a long time, Jason. I was at the airport when probably they were on from holes 13 through the playoff. And I saw people 5 and 6 deep sitting or standing around bars watching the Masters. And, you know, you talk about the impact Tiger Woods had on golf, but this was really healthy for the PGA Tour. to see this many people interested in the buzz and people talking about it. And then I happened to be getting in line for my flight, and I heard this woman scream, "Sergio won, Sergio won," and then there was applause in the airport. So a really healthy day for the PGA Tour.
That's very healthy. That's Tiger-like.
That's Tiger-like. But it is the Super Bowl of, in my opinion, the Super Bowl of their golf schedule. I mean, it is the most incredible viewing experience in 4K. I'm going to get to go next year. I'm excited about that. It's just a beautiful place and it brings out the best people to play. And it's a really challenging golf course. I mean, nobody's going to finish 19 under or 20 under like you see in some tournaments. I mean, it's a struggle. It's a battle. And it's a lot of fun to watch something that competitive and that important and with that much tradition. I think they did a nice job, too, of paying tribute to Arnold Palmer. They gave out these commemorative buttons that said Arnie's Army like they did in 1959. I thought that was really cool. A really cool touch.
And I watched a few interviews with Tiger Woods, actually, this weekend. And he seems down. He seems depressed. And again, it's another in a long line of tournaments that he said he was going to play in and wasn't able to go. And he's at that age and he's had that injury history. You have to wonder, like, does he have, I mean, they keep saying, like, well, he's got one more run in him. But it seems like every time we go up for another run, there's not another run. No,
and what's sad is that, we were talking when he break Jack Nicklaus's majors record. Now it's not a question of will he win again. It's a question of if he'll play again.
Exactly.
And if he will play, is he going to play 2 days and get eliminated? And that's not good for the legacy. It's not good for the legend. So there's part of me that thinks he should just hang it up and just enjoy what he's built, and maybe just design some great golf courses and move on.
Well, long term, like even some of those, like, guys that play, nobody really thinks about Jordan on the Wizards or Willie Mays when he didn't play, when he was at the Mets.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's lots of examples of guys that were insanely great players that had, a couple of less than memorable years at the end. That those sort of years just sort of, I think at the time you think about them. But
Franco Harris is a Seahawk.
Right. But eventually those are just gone. You don't even think about those times anymore.
Anymore.
But I wondered about, like, what are we, in that regard, like, 10 years from now, if we've seen the last of Tiger Woods on a golf course, does he move back into that pantheon of the greatest you've ever seen, and that's the discussion? Or does all the baggage still remain with him? Like, does it just sort of go away in a decade, and we just remember the dominant guy, the young Tiger, the smiling Tiger that just dominated everybody and was brought eyes to golf? I know I was bartending at the time. And people
didn't watch golf.
People watch golf. And we could have golf on 7 of the 8 TVs, and people would come in and ask for golf on the other TV so they could see it. And this was when there were other sporting events taking place. Yeah. There was other things to watch, but people.
Look at April.
Yeah,
April's an incredible month,
and people wanted to watch Tiger. So I'm just wondering, like, does all this stuff just wash away over the sands of time, as they say, or does it, will it hang on him a little bit?
Yeah, it's hard to say. Well, I hope he figures it out, and we'll see where we go from there.
Indeed. So we can move on to, I think this is sort of an odd story. It's pretty new. It came out yesterday. It's James Harrison, Marshawn Lynch, and about 8 other NFL players were participating in an arm wrestling tournament in Las Vegas in a casino. CBS taped it and was going to air it, I think, at the end of the month. I'm not sure why they're waiting, but it wasn't live. But I think they just had a hole. But now the NFL is saying that. I mean, and again, I know James Harrison was promoting it on Twitter, promoting it on Facebook. It wasn't like this was like a secret event that they just showed up for.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why the NFL took so long to catch wind, considering who they are and what they do. But apparently they didn't catch wind until after the tournament. And now they're talking about fining people for being in a casino in Vegas. They're doing a promotional event in a casino.
Mm-hmm.
And this is coming a week after they approved Raiders to move to Vegas, the home of casinos.
Yeah.
So you have to, obviously they're going to have to make some policy changes, but you wonder, I know as a Steeler fan, personally, I wonder, like, are they just going to, go after, James Harrison just because he's James Harrison? And he's had such a contentious relationship, or are they just going to realize, like, this wasn't a secret. Everybody knew about this. We just slept on it. We're already moving a team to Vegas.
So in the Sport Business Journal, New York Giants owner Steve Tisch said, now this is pretty much a done deal, the Raiders moving to Las Vegas. I think the league internally must look at existing restrictions and rewrite some of them, which I think is great perspective. I mean, if you said you're going to go here and this is where you're going to be, then Las Vegas isn't going to adapt to you.
No.
Las Vegas is Las Vegas. Although I think Jerry Jones was a little out of line when he said that this isn't your father's Las Vegas. This is now a family destination. I don't know what kind of family that is. Maybe it's the Addams family, but I don't know whose family, who takes a family. Well, wait a minute. Chevy Chase did a family vacation. Didn't he go to Las Vegas in one of their things?
I think they were older kids though at that time.
They were older
the third or
kids
fourth
at the time.
movie. Yeah.
So maybe it is a family vacation, but I don't know how is it if it makes top 10. But really, the NFL is going to have to make some adjustments and make some changes. If this is what you're going to do, if this is what you want to be, look at you're limited to the number of advertisers, the number of sponsors that you're going to have in Las Vegas. It's silly to think that the casinos aren't going to want to advertise.
And it's silly to think the NFL is going to turn down casino money to advertise.
And I mean, usually what they've done with casinos and sports is you've advertised your hotel and your golf course and your dining, but not gaming.
Right.
And so you're so limited in Las Vegas with sponsorship opportunities. I just don't see how you're not going to make some concessions. And if you make the concessions in Las Vegas, then you have to make the concessions everywhere.
True. But it's also somewhat hypocritical because, they, ESPN, they always list the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not like they're putting them there just for random. They put, Raiders, 3.5-point favorites over the Chargers. Every newspaper lists the Vegas odds. So, it's not like they've shunned gambling on some level.
Yeah. This is an interesting move, Jason. This seemed like they were resigned to this move. It doesn't seem like they're excited about this move because, listen to this. It's the market with the second lowest average disposable income among major American cities. It's exposure to economic downturns, dependence upon fans flying in to attend games, the slim corporate base having a team play as a home lame duck for 2 seasons with no place to play yet in 2019, and most importantly, the lack of a lease so far. It just seems like, did they give in because the name Davis is synonymous with lawsuits? Did they just say, okay, this is going to happen, it's going to be inevitable, there's going to be a lot? It's a move that's going to be questioned through the opening season and probably more than that. Because Oakland is a very lucrative market. It's Brooklyn in 2017, so it's a growth market
with a great fan base.
We're gonna have to see. It's gonna be really, really interesting.
Indeed, it's very just everything about it just is. It's quite odd right now.
It's very different,
and especially the fact that they want to hang in Oakland for 2 more years or 3 more years.
Yeah.
While they wait for the stadium to be built, which is like getting a divorce and being like, yeah, I'm still gonna hang out here on your couch and date other people.
It's too expensive to get a divorce. Let's live in the same house.
Yeah.
And we won't talk to each other.
But still come buy our tickets.
Yeah.
Buy our merchandise, hang out with us.
It's interesting. We'll have to see where it goes.
So I know there was some talk about them playing somewhere else for maybe next year if it became too contentious in the city.
Yeah.
Because again, it seems very insulting. I know if I was an Oakland fan and they were moving, I feel like I would take it slightly personal and I would stop going to the game. If I was, I would, because I know they were allowed to cancel their season tickets once the move was announced, and I know I would have. I don't know if that's, just not being realistic in a business world, but I just feel like it's odd.
It is
awkward. I'm going to root for a team that you said you're going to leave, and I know they're being left with a lot of debt too from the last time that they renovated the stadium.
Yeah.
And that's stuck with the taxpayers. That's not going to Vegas.
Yeah.
It's not going to be on the casino.
It is a terrible, terrible venue. It's the worst outdoor venue, I think, that I've seen.
I'm sure the Vegas one will be, retractable roof.
Oh, I'm sure they'll be first class, state of the art.
Right.
So we'll see.
With slot machines right outside, probably.
Or inside.
Inside. At some point, I think that's coming. Obviously, the biggest news as we gear up for the NBA playoffs is still the MVP race.
Mm-hmm.
you and I have both, I think, pretty much declared our love for Russ and his candidacy. I mean, last night he had a 50-point triple-double, hit the game-winning three, his third game-winning shot in, I think, the last 7 or 8 games.
Yeah. I heard the stat today that he plays 18. He's 18th in minutes played in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
So if he was really chasing stats, and he played 5 or 6 more minutes a game, he might be averaging 30, 15, and 15.
I know some people are skewering him because of that comment he made the other night. He had in their loss to Phoenix, I think he was like 7 of 21.
Yeah.
So he was passing. He had 8 assists, and he was passing the ball at the end of the game.
Yeah.
And
he said, "What the F do you expect? I'm 6 for 19 or something."
yeah, like why am I?
Yeah, why would I shoot? I'm not having a good night. I mean, to me, that's logical.
It's
right?
logical. It makes to me it made perfect sense. But I know people are like, "See, he was just chasing the assist stats." And
That's crazy. I mean, if one part of your game's not going well, you obviously look to use the parts of your game that are working because
Right.
you're trying to help your team.
I can't hit a shot. Somebody else on my team surely can. I'm gonna just give the ball up. I'm off tonight.
I saw on ESPN today they were talking about the difference between Russ on the court and Russ off the court is with Russ off the court, they estimated that the Thunder would be a 28-win team. 28 wins. Rather than and they downgrade, so well, Rockets are going to be in the 3rd seed and the Thunder's going to be the 6th seed. Well, they wouldn't be there without Russell Westbrook. And the other stat I really want to talk about that I just started thinking about is every time there's a Mike D'Antoni coach team, right?
Right.
The stats for the point guard and the scores on that team always go up exponentially.
Exponentially.
So, I mean, I think you got to factor that in. Can you imagine if Russell Westbrook was playing on that team? Then you're talking 40, 20, and 15 probably.
Right.
I mean, it's incredible. So, I don't want to hear it. I mean, James Harden's a great player, but most valuable, if you really define it as most valuable to where your team would be without you, it's Russell Westbrook. It's hands down, period.
And again, they're a solid playoff team. They're not squeaking in the last week to get the 8th seed in a weak conference.
No, they're not.
They're separated by 8 games, which I know is a significant amount, but the Rockets added a few players in the offseason.
And the Thunder notably lost one.
They lost 2. I mean, they lost Serge Ibaka in the trade. And they lost, obviously,
Durant.
Kevin Durant.
And they lost 30 points a game.
30 points a game plus, I mean, I know Serge Ibaka had a down year, but I mean, he's a big, huge contributor on the Toronto Raptors right now. He's been a playoff player. So, I mean, you lost, quote unquote, 2 of your big 3.
Mm-hmm.
And he's put them on his back into the playoffs. And the Rockets got better. And like you said, D'Antoni teams, the point guard does really well. They score a lot of points. And they typically have a ton of regular season success. And obviously, you can look back at sort of the shaky Sun series from a few years ago against the Lakers and some of the refereeing. That it's hard to say that he's never won anything because, I mean, he did take a few teams to the conference finals.
Yep.
Some of the Steve Nash teams. And I think anybody that knows the NBA history knows that there was a lot of calls and some weird suspensions in those Phoenix-LA series that...
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily... I mean, it wasn't like they lost the team due to bad coaching, let's just say that.
No.
There's definitely some extenuating circumstances.
Well, I have another favorite player I want to talk about because when he pitches, the turnstiles click, click. And that's Noah Syndergaard or Thor. I was watching the highlights last night, and I saw everybody in the stands dressed up like Thor, swinging hammers. I mean, it's like he's the Nolan Ryan of this decade. And I mean, but he's got a lot more personality than Nolan Ryan. And I mean, he's embracing who he is. If you saw his post-game conference last night, he had a crown on his head.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
He is awesome. And I mean, he is, we just talked about, Jason Stark wrote an amazing article last week called The Faceless of Baseball, saying baseball really doesn't have a face. And I agree with him. It really does not at this point in time. But it's got this amalgamation. And my argument to Jason was the Cubs are probably the face of baseball right now, the team of the Cubs. But we've got some emerging stories, and Syndergaard's one. Mike Trout, to me, would be the face of baseball if he didn't play in L.A. and 3/4 of the country never gets to watch him play. I mean, that to me is big.
If he had Bryce Harper's personality. I mean, Mike Trout seems like he's very content just to play baseball and be
he's content being Mike Trout.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, no, he's
and he has
phenomenal.
Fun. He has fun.
He has fun, but I mean, he doesn't. I don't know Mike Trout.
Mike
Like,
Trout
I'm getting to know Noah Syndergaard. I mean, he's gone out of his
Yep.
way. I mean, I know I know a little bit about Bryce Harper, but
Again, if Mike Trout played in the Eastern Time Zone, it'd be a totally different story. Because Mike Trout is Mickey Mantle-esque. He is really a superstar. And, I whenever I have a chance to go see Mike Trout, I go. So when I'm on the West Coast and the Angels are home, I make sure I go to see Mike Trout. He's an amazing player. But, watch this story. Jason Stark is probably the best baseball writer out there. He's very thorough in what he writes. Does a lot of research. He doesn't just write about opinion. He takes people's opinions and he takes the facts and he blends them into a great story.
do you think if Mike Trout was a little bit more attention-seeking, that even on the West Coast he could overcome that?
A little bit, but I think you just lose too many viewers. And you just not seeing
Flat out?
Yeah. If Mike Trout played on the Mets or the Yankees or the Cubs or maybe even the Cardinals, he would get a lot more acclaim and a lot more attention.
Because I can't help but think about, when I think about guys like Mike Trout, I think about, obviously growing up as a Steeler fan, I always felt like Hines Ward didn't get nearly enough credit.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a couple years where all of a sudden Hines Ward was talking a lot more. He went on Dancing with the Stars. He started doing some stuff to put him...
Yeah.
He started acting a little bit more... I mean, because he's in the same division with Chad Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
Ocho Cinco, whatever you want to call him.
Mm-hmm.
Who did everything he could to draw attention to himself.
Right.
And I think, the message was, well, I can be a great football player, grind, play football, enjoy myself on the football field, but it's not going to get me that next level.
That next level.
Whereas you can be, Chad Ochocinco has some very good years in the NFL, but I feel like he was never as good as the person people thought that he was based on his celebrations and his antics and his behavior and wearing Hall of Fame jackets to press conferences.
Yep.
And it just, I guess, it sort of brings up the issue, like, as being, and I know I've run into this in the literary world as well, where it's like they want to know, before they even want to know how great what you wrote is, they want to know they want to know about your social media. They want to know about your tweets and everything else. And I wonder, like, is it enough anymore to be great at your sport? Like, is being Mickey Mantle-esque enough to get you attention, or do you have to,
It's a great point.
do you have to do something?
You have to make you have to contribute to the publicity you have to contribute to making yourself great other than what you do.
Other than what you do.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, with Noah, I mean, like I said, I mean, he's got the hair. He's a good-looking guy. He's embracing this, and again, like you said, he's in the East Coast market. He's with the Mets.
Mm-hmm.
They're obviously embracing the whole Thor aspect.
Yeah.
And like I said,
Coca-Cola's embraced it.
He's got a cool personality, but I mean, he's going above and beyond his on-the-field baseball.
He is.
Like, if he was just had sort of the slightly blonde hair, went out, did his business, are we talking about him on this podcast?
No.
Is he on the front page of ESPN as often as he is? Probably not.
Yep. I liked the Nuke LaLoosh pitch in the playoffs a couple years ago, too.
Yeah.
That was a big factor, too. I mean, he has his personality. I would submit his personality is integral to his pitching.
Yeah.
It really is. So, and so he's blended it well. So let's watch him as a story. Maybe we'll visit him and talk about a little bit more about that later on.
But then it sort of becomes the whole situation where then we complain when people act a certain way. But it's when they don't act a certain way, we just sort of take them for granted on some level. It's like, well, it's just Trout, just doing Trout stuff.
Yeah.
And again, like you said, his numbers are historical.
He's incredible. But he's so low key, and like I said, probably your only exposure to him is on SportsCenter in the morning because you're not watching the games.
And do you feel like there's anything MLB can be doing to push him more?
Oh yeah, for sure. Absolutely, I did. But they haven't.
Right.
They look like they've got a couple ads out now featuring Chris Bryant.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe there's going to be some Mike Trout things. I think MLB's starting to understand that they need to tell their story.
Right.
And that because nobody else can tell it for them. They need to tell the story. They need to take an active role in trying to make the story told.
Because again, when I do think about the players that I follow baseball, I guess peripherally, not nearly as much as you do. Obviously, I look at Pirate box scores and everything else, but you think about the players of the last decade that really stand out, and it does seem to be they're all associated with a very strong personality. and a personality that I'm well aware of.
Big Papi.
Big Papi. Like I talked about him to Mom this morning. Like when they were talking about Cervelli and his accent and how much people like him and how he's this larger than life persona.
Yeah.
And again, just like with Cervelli, Big Papi obviously, Hall of Fame numbers to boot everything else. But I mean, he's the smiling, jovial. He's always in a press conference. He's always got something to say, and he pushes it so you know who he is.
Yeah.
And maybe we just don't know. I guess as we get close to wrapping up here, the one thing I wanted to bring up real quick is the Orlando Magic, and as someone that has been to a number of Orlando Magic home games, I was initially a big Rob Hennigan supporter when he came on. Mm-hmm. I thought the previous GM was pretty bad. He was a great guy, wonderful for the city, great ambassador for the city, but I thought a lot of the basketball moves he made around Dwight Howard and that team just seemed really foolish. So they were bringing in this young guy who had, sort of analytical background. Seemed like he was starting to make some really good choices. They've obviously made some just insane moves in the last year that it almost feels like he wants to be fired. I mean, the Bismack Biyombo, Serge Ibaka, all these bringing in all these players to play the position that your number one draft pick and probably your potentially best player in Aaron Gordon plays. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden you're stacking him, moving him around. And since they got rid of that logjam, he's played better at the 4. Now, he may not be the answer at the 4. Maybe they knew that already. But most recently, they signed a foreign wing. I forget the guy's name. I feel bad. But they had him take place in a press con. The agent took a photo in the room, and behind him was the whiteboard. And on the whiteboard, they had all these potential targets, potential trades, written down in just on a whiteboard. And it would seem like if that's an important thing, it's
not where you should have a press conference.
It's not where you should have, even if it is just a signing with, an under-the-radar signing of a European basketball player who's probably going to be a D-leaguer for life. But his agent took the picture. And again, why would you bring anybody that's not essential personnel into a room with a whiteboard with that sort of information on it?
That is mind-boggling.
I mean, it had speculative trades of players you have on your roster now, including Aaron Gordon, with who your target would be. Mm-hmm. In this case, it was Sarek from Philadelphia. You had some bizarre talking about, these hybrid wings that you can't wait to get a hold of, but they're all washed up older players like Luol Deng, and I don't mean that offensively, just that if you're a young team looking to build, I don't think you're looking for 35-year-old wing players. And it's just one of those, I know people have ripped them for it, but it's oddly mind-boggling.
Yeah, it is. It's different.
It's just hard to imagine that somebody would go out of their way for that. And I don't know. I can't wrap my head around it. I mean, I think he's clear. I mean, the writing was on the wall. He was probably on his way out anyway after the last few seasons and the way they've been skewered in the media. But that just the final nail in the coffin just seems so.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't even just the fact that they allowed somebody to be in the room with that board, take a picture with that board. It was also the information that was written on that board just seemed so.
And maybe all you needed to do is turn the board around.
Yeah, turn the board around. I mean, I would assume just I've been to the facilities. There's a lot of rooms.
Yeah.
Why are you signing the room where you're apparently doing some important information? Yeah. And again, the decisions on that board, and I know he said you're just speculating. You're right. Every possibility on a board like that is what his explanation was.
Well, I agree.
And you do.
But you don't leave it out for other people to see.
No, but I also feel like if you're the Orlando Magic, going where you've been and where you're about to go, hopefully, is building this young team forward. Even the decisions on that board make you seem really stupid, basketball-wise.
Yeah, I didn't see.
Like I said, it was a lot. It was, Chandler Parsons and older injured players, and it was just a lot of like, why do you want to bring all that on yourself already? I mean, you're already what you are.
So I'll do my food moment.
All right.
I did go to my favorite restaurant in Pittsburgh, A La Familia, on Friday night, and it was absolutely incredible. If you're ever in Pittsburgh, it's just one of the top-rated restaurants. It's in a sketchy neighborhood, and you're going to have a hard time, as you drive to it, you're going to have a hard time believing that you're going to a great restaurant, but you are. Phenomenal food, phenomenal service, great atmosphere. Really, I'd put it in my top 4 or 5 restaurants in the United States. The experience is so good, and the food is so good.
What did you eat this time?
I had my go-to, which is seafood fra diavolo, which was a lobster tail, large shrimp, beautiful scallops, mussels, and probably some haddock, all in a spicy tomato sauce. Amazing. Really good. But I also went to Fiore's and had pizza. So
Yeah, Mom mentioned that. She's
to
on her cleanse, but she was like,
Yes.
I had to eat Fiore's.
we went to our favorite spot. So
And Fiore's is that. I know I've mentioned it before, but it is just that phenomenal of a pizza. It's
I was
a
trying to
must-have.
figure out the other day because I saw Fiore and Tony both there when I went in. And I'm thinking that we've been going there for 30 some years. How many pizzas have they made? Because they put up a sign like McDonald's, millions and millions. How many pizzas have they made? I'd love to figure that out.
It's got to be, because every time I've been in there, there's usually, they don't have a huge dining section, maybe like 6-8 tables.
Yeah.
And they're usually at least half full, no matter what time of day it is.
Yeah.
But they have an influx of people going in and out.
And a huge takeout business.
Huge takeout business,
Yeah.
constantly. Like there's a steady flow of people going in, getting
Yep.
pizza, going in, getting pizza. Like it's just
Yeah.
nonstop.
It's crazy.
And they are just the tops. I love them.
All right. Well, that's our show for today.
Look for us on iTunes. We have submitted, and we are just waiting for the click, but eventually you'll be able to subscribe on iTunes. Please support us on Patreon. We'd like to keep doing this, and it always helps to have a little bit to enhance the product, go a little better audio, maybe add some video elements, and hopefully add a call-in segment as well. But again, that costs a little bit of money. So visit our Patreon page and look for Sutton Impact Family Style on Patreon. And we're also on YouTube.
Yeah. Thanks for your support. Thanks for listening. And please share and tell your friends. Signing